What's happening, everybody? Thank you for being here at All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. I would love it if you do me a favor before we even get started. If you're coming anywhere other than YouTube, I would love it if you go to the youtube.com/@accesskevin link that you see below. There you can subscribe and become not only a subscriber, but you can also choose to become a member. And members get certain access to interviews and guests that are not privy to just the general public. But if you just don't want to do that, everything else is free. Just subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like this video and share it with your friends. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you guys about my amazing sponsor. 5-Star Guitars is based in Beaverton, Oregon. And if you're anywhere outside of Oregon and you want to buy accessories or guitars, you can go to this link below. They have a special promo code when you check out of using All Access Live, and you'll save 15% off everything you see. So you get a great deal on guitars and accessories, but if you order an outside of Oregon, you'll find that there's also no sales tax. So you save a ton of dough. You're going to support my sponsors, and they are wonderful in supporting me. So now my next guests I happened to see with the owner of 5-Star Guitars about a week and a half ago at the National Association of Music Merchants, the NAM show in Anaheim, California. And I've got them here in a snowy part of Oregon. I've got Scott and Sarah from Fox and Bones. How you guys doing?
We're good. Thanks for having us.
I'm grateful to have you guys here. Yeah, I was telling you, Scott, I appreciated that you got the purple and the LED memo. This is a good thing.
I'm trying to change the color of my lights now because I want to be cool too.
Yeah, high vibes over here.
But Scott, you took your jacket off. You were so stylish a little bit ago, man. I appreciated the formality.
The heat is on over here in Oregon. I'm heating up. I can't get sweaty too early in the chat.
Oh man, this is a horrible thing. But my nickname forever has been Heavy Metal. But as a drummer, man, I'm a sweater really bad. And so the last couple of years, now my nickname has changed to Sweaty Metal, which is not a good thing.
Sweaty Metal.
I have to redo my stickers here. But
that's a lubricated nickname right there.
Yeah, man. Well, I should probably talk about my future guests. I don't know if you saw coming up. I've got a myriad of wonderful guests on the show this week. I've got you guys. I've got Frank Murray from Petty Fever. I don't know if you know Frank, but he's a local Portlander. Yeah. And then Adult Video News Hall of Fame winner on Friday, which, speaking of turning up the heat, be interesting. Nikki Dial will be on the show Friday. So, we're covering all bases this week for All Access Live. But so the first thing I was going to tell you guys is, I not you guys, Scott and Sarah, but if you guys are watching this and you've not seen Fox and Bones, last weekend, this event in Anaheim is this crazy sort of cacophony of music merchandisers and product manufacturers and bands, and they all get together for a 5-day event in Anaheim. Now, seeing you guys at the Hilton in a prime spot kicking off the weekend was really special. So how did you guys end up getting Fox and Bones on that gig?
Well, I just applied. I think somebody had sent me the link because NAMM does an application for official showcases, essentially. And anytime those types of things come up, Folk Alliance or Americana Fest, we're always submitting just to see what happens. And didn't really expect anything. I just was like, all right. And then they got back to us and they were like, we'd love to have you official showcase. And so I don't think I realized how great our stage was going to be until we got there. I know that they, some of the stages were more acoustic, and I was like, we're definitely, not acoustic. We're not full band quite yet on the road, but we have a bassist in LA. So we're at least going to be an electric trio. And so we got to play on the Hilton stage, which was kind of right in the center of the lobby, and, right just outside was the big main stage. And so the location was great. People had to pass by us to get to and from the hotel. It was wonderful. We had such a good time.
Yeah, I mean that's prime real estate and perfect timing for the weekend.
Yeah,
right after you guys, I know that Paul Reed Smith, the founder of Paul Reed Smith Guitars, was there, and he had this all-star band. So yeah, you definitely could not have picked a better sort of gathering, to showcase your stuff at NAMM.
It was great.
So the one thing about the NAMM show, uh, I've been going, I think my first one was 98, long time ago. But there was a series of years where it was essentially, especially at the Hilton, it was just a party. It was just like crazy drinking and it was all the partying and not a lot of business was getting done. But I saw you guys, it didn't seem sloppy. Not you guys, but I mean the audience, right? There were people that were actually sitting and networking and doing business. And so I was going to see if anything productive came out of your performance there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was our first time at NAMM, and we definitely had our business goggles on. We only had about 24 hours to be in town and to meet as many people as we could. And so Sarah set up a meeting with Dark Matter Audio, and so we got our first set of ears that are going to start being that are going to get to us pretty soon. Some custom in ears that'll help us hear ourselves on stage. Sarah, did you set some other things up as well?
Yeah, so we kind of went into it because we have, we've got a lot of the gear that we've needed up until this point. Our big focus right now as a band is moving onto ears, and that's an expensive and tedious process. There's a lot of different moving pieces and a lot of things that you need to buy, and a lot of it's very expensive. And so I was like, the more people that we can meet that might, lead to product endorsements, the better. And so Dark Matter was the first. So we are officially endorsed by Dark Matter Audio for the ears. And then we had a great chat with a guy from Sennheiser as well. And he's going to get us hooked up with our Oregon Sennheiser rep, which will be a lot of the pieces of that in-ear rig. So still waiting to see if that's going to pan out and turn into anything. But, it's for us, we were just like, we're going to do this anyway. We're going to spend the money anyway. But like, if we can, promote these products and, get a little bit of money off, that was kind of our goal going into it. But it was also really cool because we got to further our existing relationship with Breedlove Guitars, and we did some content for them in their content studio while we were there. And then we also had a podcast interview with Now Hear This Entertainment. So we had like a really packed day. We got a lot done in one day at NAMM. And in general, too, just playing the show, I kind of had a last minute idea to bring CDs, and that ended up being great because once we got off stage, I was talking to people for almost an hour and selling CDs, and
right on. People
coming up saying, we want to see you in Asheville. We want to see you in San Diego. Like, when are you coming to this place? And so it was just great. And we met like a music festival talent buyer up here in Washington that wants to book us. And so it was definitely, I do feel like we got a lot out of it. And I feel like we're going to continue to kind of see the benefit of that show.
I mean, honestly, that kind of pays for the price or the cost of even getting down there. That's I've had a lot of people talk about endorsements on the show, and for people that are maybe green in the business and they don't realize how the relationship part goes, you keyed on something really important. You mentioned that we're already going to invest in these products, like so in-ear monitors. If you're watching this, guys, and you don't know, I mean, you've seen bands on stage and they either have studio or monitors on the stage to amplify their music back, their sound back to them. If you've got in-ear monitors, you can keep the stage volume lower. You can hear yourself better. If you're a vocalist, especially, it's great to be able to. But you talked about buying this product already, and instead of expecting and sort of in almost from a sense of entitlement, instead of expecting them to just hand stuff over to you, you talked about partnering with them, basically getting a discount on some of those products in exchange for promoting those products. And so you talked about Dark Matter Audio. It's great that you can give them a little bit of commercial, sort of endorsement. I mean, essentially that is what that's all about, right? So it's when manufacturers are out there and an artist comes to them and expects an endorsement, there is a symbiotic relationship, right? There's an expectation that you got to do the work in return to help them get eyeballs on their product or ears in their product in this case. But
yeah,
we spend so much time on the road during the year, 6 to 8 months, and we're out there using the gear. And most of the people that we talk to are people in the music industry. So being able to share what we're using and what the products that have made our lives easier and the gear that makes Fox and Bones tick definitely helps.
Yeah, man.
Did you say mucus industry?
We're in the mucus industry, yes.
this time of year. Yeah, I know. I was just going to say, man, it's like coming back from NAMM. You said that this is your guys' first NAMM, but you guys, have you been there individually before? Or was this the first time for both of you to be there? Oh man.
First
And then you
time.
had to jump out of there the next morning, right? When I saw you guys, you were flying out early the next morning. All right.
Yeah, we kind of did it crazy because we applied for NAMM and then I kind of forgot about it. And so we booked shows that weekend that had been on the books for like 6 months. And so we're like, thankfully they wanted us on Thursday. And we kind of got this prime Thursday at 8 p.m. slot, which was,
It
I
is,
think,
yeah.
perfect. But yeah, it was crazy. We like definitely went back and forth. They're like, is this worth it to like fly all the way down there for 2 nights and spend all the money on the hotel? But Scott and I have always like not shied away from investing money into our career. You know, we're like, we got a band credit card. It has cashback rewards. We're like, you know what? Yeah, I know that there's people that are like, I can't do this because of the money. And for us, it's like, maybe we shouldn't
Well,
because of the money. But like, we have always found that the investing in ourselves brings so much back. So things like NAMM, it's like, it was crazy to like fly down there and do the whole thing and pay our bassist to come and all that stuff. But it ended up being so worth it. And it always is. I think investing in yourself always is worth it. And so that's just been kind of a mantra for us for a long
I'd
time.
like to build on that too. And when you showing up to somewhere where people who show up in their industry or in their craft has always been such a valuable asset. Like go to the place where all the people who are working their butts off to be able to exist in an industry is the benefits of that. I think in the short term, maybe you don't see them, but like you make these connections that span all across the US and Europe, and you're able to then build on that. And so going to a place for people who are passionate about what they do and meeting those kindred spirits is such a valuable thing in this industry.
For sure. Well, I was touching on the timing of this, that you would split Friday morning. Many people that go to NAMM end up with what they call NAMthrax afterwards. So this
Ooh.
time of year, I mean, it's already, it's flu season, right? And people come out. This year, I didn't hear about it as much, but it used to, in years past, this is way before COVID, people would come out of there because there are 100,000 people gathered in close quarters and probably not taking the best care of themselves, so they'd come out of there with like not only mucus, but a lot of other issues too, so you guys made it safe. Everybody's health was good. And
Yeah, we made it through, which was crazy because we had just come off of our festival and running a festival the weekend before. We had 2 days to like recover, and then we flew out on Wednesday to NAMM and then flew to Seattle to play 2 shows and drive around and do that and then get home Sunday. So by all means, like we should have probably gotten sick, but I think because of the festival, Scott and I have been taking really good care of ourselves. And I haven't been drinking for the most part for like 5 months, and Scott kind of takes January off of drinking. And so, doing that, like, I think because of we were already in high stress situations because of our festival. So we were just taking really good care of ourselves. And I gotta assume that helped, because there's really no reason why we shouldn't have just run ourselves into the ground in January.
Man, I'm thinking about the investment part too. This is really key. I got to, I've known about Fox and Bones for quite a while. And as we sat on the curb outside the NAMM show, you were talking to Geoff Metz about the show that you guys did together with Metz Ryan Collins when Jason Fellman put on the Mogo Festival a few years ago. And so I've been hip to Fox and Bones for a while, but I got to do a deep dive in your recordings and watch your videos. And you talked about the investment. You guys have done serious production in both audio and video. I'm blown away by how well produced the videos are, and the audio recordings are, they're not basement recordings, man. You guys, these are legitimate like commercial releases. So where is that coming from? Do you guys have some endorsement? You have some sponsorship or label support, or or is this all on the company credit card?
I think a majority of it ends up going on the credit card for us. I think we have never shied away from investing in good artists and in the community. And so we try to find people to work with that are equally as passionate or insane about their art as we are. And we feel that really levels us up. Instead of trying to figure out something on our own or trying to edit something on our own, we'll find the best editor that we can, or the best producers that we can to show us how to do it and to help us bring whatever output that we're creating to another level. And then we pay it back eventually.
Yeah. And I also, Yep. And that's the nice thing about touring as much as we do, is that we know that we are going to make the money back. And so we do find we're basically our own label. You know, the label does the same thing. They pay the money up front and then you pay it back to them through touring and merchandise. And so essentially we're just fronting the money for our own label. I love that you said these are not basement recordings though, because our last album technically is a basement recording. It's just a really nice basement studio. So I love that. I'm like, it's the highest end basement recording you can get.
Sounds well produced. At least you got a great mastering suite if that's it, man. Well, you mentioned the last recording. So I know on the website you've got there's on March 13th, Ain't Giving Up Tonight. Is that a new video or is that a new album release or what's that all about?
Yeah, that's a brand new song that we're coming out that we recorded at the Domino Room, which is the name of the studio that we recorded in, this one and the last one. But with Greg Holden producing it, and he's actually been I think the big revelation on our career of the past 3 years, because we have been writing all of our songs and producing all our songs with Greg Holden, and he has helped be the determining vote on all of our musical ideas. Sarah and I are very stubborn and we butt heads a lot, and we have our own distinct way that we want to do things, and Greg has come in and been the third person to help us figure out what to, one, fight for our lyrics, to two, fight for our ideas, but also help shed some light on ways to move forward when Sarah and I sometimes can get into our kerfuffles over creative direction. And so having a third person on the team has really, I think, upped our musical output and brought us to the next level.
Go ahead, Sarah. You had something.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that, beyond being a mediator too, Greg is just like, I mean, he's an award-winning songwriter. He's written Billboard hits. He has this illustrious career on his own. And I think that we were really looking to find some, there's not a lot of industry in Portland, right? Like there are people in the music industry in Portland, but it doesn't have its kind of own music industry here the way New York or LA or Nashville do. And Greg was just kind of this lucky, perfect happenstance where we were kind of looking for someone to take our music to the next level. And he happened to have just moved to Portland and didn't know anybody. And we were able to kind of join forces. And it really was like an insane up level in so many ways for Scott and I. And so, yeah, it's just, it was definitely one of those kismet things working with him.
I'm trying to think of one of the interviews that I listened to. You talked about the contributing songwriter on House by the River. Was that, is he the one, Greg Holden, that actually came up with the that riff over?
Yep.
So, I mean, rather than repeating what I heard on the podcast before, do you want to kind of tell that story a little bit about his input there on House by the River?
Yeah. Well, he's very, because Greg is a songwriter first, he very much wanted to work with artists who he could co-write with. And so the first couple days that we went into the studio, we had some songs that were already written that we wanted him to kind of help us revamp and get ready for the album. And I think Scott and I had co-written before, but never in like a super professional capacity. And Scott and I have co-written together, but like we weren't really doing that anymore. And so I think we were both a little nervous and we were kind of avoiding the co-writing parts. We're like, okay, what if we work on this song that we already have? And I think it was like the second or third day in the studio, he was like, you guys, we're writing a song together. We're doing it from scratch. Let's not dilly-dally around this anymore. And while this was happening, he's playing that riff over and over and over and over. And we're talking about, what do we want to write about? And where do we want to start? And what chords should we start with? And he was like, I'm going to keep playing this riff until you guys put it in the song. And so we're like, okay, let's just surrender to the process here. We were like very rigid at first. And him having that riff ready to go really did help. And then I think we started to kind of feel out the melody, and then Take Me Down to the House by the River kind of came to me. And that was when we started to have like a purpose or like a theme for the song. And then after that, we were able to kind of roll with it. And so it was really interesting because that little riff will always remind me of that like awkward first moment where Scott and I were just like, oh, this is so weird to co-write. And then that like moved us on in the direction.
Really like giving up the reins, right? I mean, that to have somebody else take take the wheel on that one's pretty, that takes honestly a lot of trust in you guys and sort of respect for his craft. Well, You know what?
Definitely.
We talked before about maybe you guys haven't performed a little bit live, and then the weather came up in the Pacific Northwest, right? So since we don't get a live performance, but we're bringing up that song, and it's such a hook that's stuck in my head forever. I'm going to share a little live clip if we can. I'm going to go ahead and just put on the live version of House by the River. There was a live at the Crystal Ballroom that you guys recorded, so I'm going to go ahead and share that one. And if you guys just got here, this is Scott and Sarah from Fox and Bones, and let's go ahead and share a little bit of a live show here.
Fair.
Another town that we're leaving. Another friend says goodbye. I often wonder, is this all a simulation? With every mile that we drive.
Where is the prize we were promised? Where is the key to the door? Manifesting our destiny without asking, who are we doing it for?
Let's build four walls in the forest. Write a few songs with our friends. I think we've done enough running. Take me down to the house by the river. Take me home. I'm ready for my hands to get dirty. I'm ready to become overgrown. Maybe a moment without modern simulation. Sleep in a bed that I own. Let's build four walls in the forest. Write a few songs with our friends. I think we've done enough running. Take me down to the house by the river. Take me home.
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 Let's build four walls in the forest. Write a few songs with our friends. I think we've done enough running. Take me down to the house by the river. Let's build four walls in the forest. Write a few songs with our friends. I think we've done enough running. Take me down to the house by the river. Take me down to the house by the river.
Sing it with us.
Take me down to the house by the river. Take me home.
Such good stuff, man. Such a hook. I love this. Your friend Aaron Larson says, "Oh, how I love and miss seeing you both." Oh
Hi,
man,
Aaron. We miss you too.
like a couple of things about that clip in particular. Your fashion, your style is so badass, right? Like that jacket is ridiculously cool. I love that. But everybody in the band has a very distinctive style. Your bass player, quite an outfit. The
Yep. That's a classic.
you guys get together and powwow about who's going to wear what, and say, okay, we can't all wear this same outfit. So Scott, you probably had the pink ensemble on first, right? And you had to arm wrestle Sarah for it.
She's always taken the pink ensemble
Yeah.
away from me.
Yeah. Scott is campaigning to be
Yeah.
Fox. So I think that, there may be space for him to don the wig and wear the pink outfit someday soon. I told him, I'm like, you can only be Fox if you do all of it. You have
That's
to
a
do all of
commitment,
it.
for
And
sure.
so, yeah, it's a commitment. But the fashion part of it is something that I've really taken under my wing. And it's so interesting to watch because that video was recorded a year ago. And I feel like there have even been so many up levels that have happened since that video was recorded. I have really taken it on to create an aesthetic for the band. Because I think in the past, it was kind of like we had the Quick and Easy boys backing us, and they're amazing. And they're also their own band, and they're very much their own people. And so it felt weird to like bend them to Fox and Bones. Well, I was kind of like, I think I just need you guys to be the Quick and Easy boys, and Sean needs to be shirtless, and Jimmy needs to be in a kilt, and Shook is back there in like a neon jumpsuit, and everyone looks different. And I think that was really fun for a while. But I realized that what my dream always was for us to be like a very cohesive looking band on stage. And so for this last Folk Fest, which was same stage, one whole year later, I put together like basically a theme for all of us to follow. A couple of our songs have gambling references. And so I had my mom sew playing cards onto a corset and into a belt. And I had this whole like top hat and thing. And each of the guys was in all black. Scott had one of his like Western shirts like he's wearing now, but it had cards on the front. And then each of the guys were in all black with red bow ties. And then we attached cards to each of their outfits. And for me, it just like hit this thing where I was just like, okay, we've always like looked pretty good on stage. But to take it to that next level and really plan it out and have themes and, it's just been so much fun for me to put together. And I think the band that we're playing with now is kind of a hodgepodge of different people we've played with in the past. And so I don't know what about it is working, but we've got this really cohesive thing. And that's what Scott and I have been really working on for a long time, is trying to figure out which band members are going to be the right fit for what we're trying to do moving forward. And so it's just been really fun to like play with building that band over the last year and building the aesthetic around the band as well.
Team. Yeah. One thing you talked about before we watched the video was having sort of an objective person as a producer and sort of a mediator, if you will. You talked about in this other interview about sort of giving up the reins, even in some singing and, sort of leading the band, so there are some songs that Scott was singing on first and you said, you know what, I think that's mine. How do you go about that diplomatically so that because I mean, honestly, egos really are, every front person in the world in a rock band or in a band in general has an ego. How do you deal with both being alphas in the band and having to give up a little bit of that control?
There's no diplomacy. It's hostile takeover. Sarah will come in and just be like, I'm singing this now. We're changing the key. And I'll say, okay. And then we'll do that. So it's not diplomatic on Sarah's end. It's strong, getting strong armed.
Scott. Wow. Well, I will say that for the first 6 years of the band, I very much deferred that. And I think that I realized how, if you don't speak up for what you want, you don't get what you want. And, I don't know if that's strong arming, but it's clearly a point of contention between us. But in the past, because I have the capacity to sing harmonies and I'm good at singing harmonies and writing harmony parts, I've generally ended up singing harmonies on a lot of our past songs, and Scott is singing lead. And at the end of the day, I'm a lead singer. I want to be a band leader. I want to be front and center. And Scott and I definitely have had to share that. And I think at different times we go in and out of how that looks, because sometimes Scott wants to be the center of attention, and sometimes he's kind of like, yeah, I don't want to be looked at today. And, he's more of an introvert and stuff. And so I think we're still figuring out how to balance that. I think that having a mediator in the studio has certainly helped. It's helped me feel like I can advocate for my ideas more. Not that Scott ever was keeping me from doing that before, but I think I was keeping myself from doing that just from a lack of confidence in my own ideas. And so I think having Greg in the studio agreeing with me on some things, I'm like, oh, wait, oh, I guess I do have good ideas, or I guess I do deserve to be heard. And I think it's just been like a very good process for me over time. And now it's just kind of turned into, Scott probably thinks I'm a monster, but I'm like, this is what I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this. And I would say like 90% of the time I'm right about
Wow,
those
what
things.
great odds for you. Do you have the numbers on those?
Not to say that you're wrong about things. I'm just
10%.
saying, like, when
Wow.
I have
These are some inflated numbers.
when I
from
have ideas.
America.
Okay, you literally just said this to me. You were like, "You're usually right about your ideas," and or did you not just say that to me, Scott?
We can't have this be the unearthing of the band, the unraveling of the band. Well, I have to. Okay, Scott, hold that thought for a second.
Is there time for rebuttal? Or
Yeah. All right, well, I know we've got some lawyers watching the show right now, so I'm going to change gears for a second because you brought up the folk alum.
Would love that.
And you mentioned Americana too, the term. I never even thought about that until this weekend. I was up in Canada and I was doing, like I said, some of the prep for the show, and I was watching videos from up there, and I realized the Canadian American thing, became a little bit more in my face than I had expected before. And so the term Americana doesn't seem fair anymore because truly that genre, because when I hear your music, that's the first thing that my mind went to, right? Is that sort of folk songwriting and the roots in sort of folk, at least. There's a rock element, and there's a and I think this rootsy element, but Americana is the first thing that came to my mind, and I thought, why did they get that term, right? Because there are plenty of Americana sounding bands that are up in Canada that would really be upset that they lost ownership of that term, so why Americana? Why do they claim that?
That's great.
I felt that's a little bit less of a national thing and more, I think they're just looking for a basket to put singer-songwriters where it used to be like singer-songwriter was kind of the genre, or folk was the genre. And so I feel it kind of just was a natural movement to figure out a basket of songwriting, like artists who write songs, who write songs that have something to say, or write songs that have like kind of like almost like what Tom Petty would be in the past, like Jackson Browne type singer-songwriter. I think I have never thought it was like American songwriters.
Right.
I've always thought Americana was kind of more of like I guess like a style or a combination of music, like the new age singer-songwriter. So I think it includes all. We're all in North America, so
That's
in the Americas. So I think it includes the whole, both continents, up and down.
I think the history of Americana, and it's really interesting because this genre specifically and the Americana Music Association is like very tight knit and very they don't, it's hard to get in from the outside. And I think Americana, it's interesting because you see artists in Europe as well who call themselves Americana. And I do think that a lot of it is just like where the traditions stem from, because I know that like folk has been one thing. And then I think Americana is this thing that like built from that started out, I know that there's like, some Appalachian folk in there, and there's some like, there's basically, it's this like uniquely American culture thing that happened a while ago that kind of just became this thing. And so it's interesting because I also don't see it as like a American thing, but I think it's because the roots and the history, and I would probably include Canada in that, because again, it's North America. It's like everyone who came here from somewhere else and had this melting pot of cultures. I think that's Americana, because there's like a little bit of everything that's involved in the Americana genre. And it's just become kind of like become kind of a catch-all for this like singer-songwriter folk genre.
There's a good amount of Canadian viewers that watch the show, and I've got a lot of Canadian guests that have been on the show. And because I don't think it had been that polarized until maybe this last weekend, so I know that it's going to be a question that I'd have some of the Canadian folks ask. Just in terms of like, the travel. You talked about Europe is a big bucket of the folk and Americana singer songwriter type stuff. I think when I first I heard that you guys started touring, you went overseas like immediately, right? When the band was like not even 8 months old, you guys were on the road and doing like European tour. All right.
Yeah, we were
So,
lucky. We were
no, I was
lucky
just
to
going to
have.
say
Mhm.
that European tours can make or break a band. And I think early on, if it's in your first year, you exceeded the odds. So tell me about that. If you want to tell me about what you were lucky for, but also tell me about that first year, because that had to have been story inducing.
Yeah, we were lucky to have a friend who had been bringing American bands over to Germany, Austria, Switzerland. Dominic Schmidt of Roll of Music, and it's someone I'd known for a while, and he'd asked a few times if I had wanted to go over. But at the time, I had a full band, and I didn't know how that would all work. And so when Sarah and I started playing music, he brought us over there fairly early. And I think the thing that worked for us was that we were insanely dedicated to it. We wanted to be there 100%, and so the ups and downs of being far from home and trying to figure out how to get around in a country where you didn't speak the language and get to shows and communicate with audiences who had a language barrier, all those things were part of the charm for us and something that I think we both fell in love with doing. And so we at the time were so grateful to be on the road and grateful to just be living the music life that it propelled us through what I think could have been a make or break time. But for me,
Mhm.
at least, it felt like it was just the fact that we were there doing it was the success. Sarah, did you have a different feeling?
I think it's when we like first started fighting for sure. I think that it definitely tested us and we did come through it. And in that way, I think you're right. Like it was such a cool experience, and it got us to that point where we're like, okay, touring is going to bring up X, Y, and Z, because 8 months into our band was also 8 months into us even knowing each other. And I think there was a lot of growing pains through that. And I think that, that being able to get through that and come out on the other end and be like, that was awesome. Let's do it again. Like, cause after that we threw ourselves into touring, and that's when we were starting to tour like 9-10 months out of the year. We weren't paying rent at home anymore. We were in Europe for a couple months straight. And, I think that first tour was the thing that ignited it, even though there were a lot of challenges. I think there's something about overcoming challenges and overcoming them together that bonds you, and that makes equips you for, and just makes you excited to be like, okay, well, we did that and we did it pretty well. So what else can we do? And that's just kind of been our mantra ever since, I think, is just like continuing to challenge ourselves and go to the next stage.
I think I love the idea that you saw the adversity, you were able to get past it, and you recognized that what you wanted to do was go in, exponentially higher and more. I think about the first times that I went over to Europe with some bands, and we were in a Sprinter together, and you're around each other 24/7, and you're staying in close quarters, staying in youth hostels in the red light district in Amsterdam, and just like eating on a shoestring budget. And really, I mean, merchandise was like the thing that kind of helped keep things afloat. Was it the same thing for you guys? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Merch sales were such a big help for us. And Döner
Oh yeah.
kebabs were like €2 or €3.
Right.
We ate those so
Yeah.
often. So we definitely, merch sales in the States too is really what keeps the wheels from
It's
falling off.
amazing. I mean, do you guys have day jobs right now? Are you doing some stuff like, is it just music for you? Both?
I do a little talent buying around town, so it's music
Okay.
related things that I'll work on, and yeah, just various other. We do gigs around town here or there as well, supplemental.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and I actually I have had many other jobs, and I just started a new remote job that hopefully I'll be able to do
Right
from the
on.
road, just to kind of keep things supplemented and not have to be on the road 10
that,
months a year.
well, that's a trickier thing too. I mean, for me, I tour quite a bit during the year. The last couple of years, I was out around 200 days a year, and I've got a web design business, and thankfully, as long as I've got Wi-Fi, right, I can do it from anywhere. But I think in years past, trying to juggle that stuff was always tough because you're getting less sleep when you're on the road, unless you're really disciplined about eating well and getting good sleep. And that's always a tough thing, man. I think, if you guys have that down, you could probably write a book or at least some great blog articles, on maintaining that. But
Oh yeah.
one thing that you just said, Scott, you said you were in a band before, and I know, Sarah, that you'd had all sorts of your own projects as well. So the story, your origin story was pretty awesome. I love how Scott, you want to tell that? I love your depiction of your discovery of Sarah.
Oh, yeah, I was doing a little light stalking at the time. I'd seen pictures of Sarah on the internet, and I got an invite to one of her shows and kind of sat in the back and was like psst, 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 and pointing at her, and kind of came up to her after and asked if she wanted to write some songs together. And we sent I sent some piano tunes back and forth, and it was a good fit. It just felt like a good fit. I had been wanting to do more acoustic type songs and get away from the six sweaty guys on the road type of music experience that I had been having. Six dudes, one hotel room.
Right.
Had I think run its course for the time being, and so it felt like a good fit, and I think I was ready to explore music in a different way.
And what was Scott Gilmore doing? What you mentioned, Six Sweaty Guys. What was the band before?
Yeah, I had a psychedelic rock band here in Portland called Just People, and we would tour up and down the West Coast, and we'd throw semi-annual events as well. And we had a good 10-year run where we played quite a bit of gigs, and really was building blocks for a lot of my musical chops, and learned so much about how to book tours and how to try to survive on the road, and how to get albums out, and how to, I guess, keep going one foot in front of the other, which is so much about this music career, is that continuing to make progress. And it's so easy to release a song and then be like, well, okay, that's it. But it's kind of like the second you release a song is when you got to release the next song, and then the next album, and then the second that album's done, you got to start thinking about the next album. And so I learned so much about the music industry and how to keep momentum going. 'Cause it's so much about momentum. How do you keep momentum? How do you keep fans interested? How do you keep gigs coming? And how do you keep some money in your bank account so you can pay for the next step?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the band credit card, right? That's a
Yeah.
key thing, being able to balance that, right? And I don't know if you guys are putting your bills on that credit card, but that's a great thing, right? If you're paying all your utilities and everything to get that cash back. Sarah, and so stylistically, you've got, I know, a pretty varied past as well. I mean, I know like now you've got Fox and Bones as your primary, but you've also got Tragic Kingdom, right? You're doing the No Doubt tribute as well, which is awesome. A nice outlet for you to front a band and get all front and center attention. How about historically?
That's
What was
been
your stuff
great.
like before Fox and Bones?
Yeah, that's also all over the place. When I first started writing music, it's been about 10, 11 years. I put out a country album, and I've been listening to a lot of country, and that's just what kind of inspired me to start writing. And so that's just kind of the direction that things went. And pretty much immediately I wanted to change that genre, and I started moving into country rock. And then that turned into, I changed my name to Sarah Wild. I got a rock band around me, and that started to go like almost like Southern rock with like hints of metal. Cause I had a couple metal guitarists in the band that very much took ownership and like took us in that direction. And so it was fun. It was hard rock. But still had a little bit of an element of country. I think that my writing style, when left to my own devices, just tends to go that direction, as does my voice. But I think being in Sarah Wild taught me how to be a rock singer, a rock star. And the incredible irony of, Scott finding me and wanting to write more acoustic music is that he caught me on the tail end of my acoustic career, right as I was changing my name to Sarah Wild and I was starting this rock band. And little did he know he was hooking a co-lead singer that was going to make him do rock band stuff again.
Was that the band that you saw, Scott? Is that the band that you actually went out and caught Sarah the first time?
It was just her doing a solo acoustic. So I was like, nice, let's do some folk stuff.
Yeah.
She's like, okay. Okay, what about with electric guitars and drums and bass and keys and background singing? And like, yeah.
Costumes and
just trying to chill out.
And
Yeah.
I loved your
So sorry, I'm not sorry.
your lead line was great too, Scott. I love the purse story was fantastic. You wanna share that one?
Oh yeah, I love this story. I was so the moment that I met Scott, I had gone to the bathroom and like I'd left my stuff under the chair, and when I came back, Scott was sitting in my seat, and that was the first time I noticed him. And now his psychedelic rock days, his style was pretty wild and wacky, and they had been in the studio that day. So he was literally like, I think he was wearing like I don't know, some sort of piratey shirt and a vest and some crazy boots, and he had this long hair, and initially I was like, okay, I'm impressed. Something interesting and weird is going on here, and I like it. And so I said, hey, excuse me, sir, I was sitting there. And he's like, it's okay, I was just leaving. I only came over here to steal some stuff out of your bag. And that was his opening line, first thing he ever said to me. And then when he was telling you that he was whispering in the back, he was whispering to someone else, not to himself. I think that's an important distinction.
Girls love the crazy guys.
I have learned,
like Adelia.
I have learned since that he does whisper to himself a lot, especially when he's coming up with jokes to tell on stage. And so that would have been an accurate representation of him, but he was in fact whispering to someone else, and that was a better first impression.
I think
Jim just being like,
if you're going to meet someone for the first time, you gotta say something strange. You got to come from a different angle. So many, especially artists, they have a lot. They've heard a lot of opening lines, meet a lot of people. So, just had to follow my inner voice and say something a little off kilter.
I'm impressed. As long as you hadn't used that one before, if that's your go-to every time, Scott, then that's
one for one. So far,
right.
1 for 1.
Nicely done. Yeah, man. Shooting baskets and 1 for 1 is pretty good. I heard you were a basketball player before. Yeah. That was your aspiration.
Yeah. Aspiration is a kind way of putting it. My parents would always recommend I have a backup plan. I was like, no way. I don't know. You can't see it from here. I'm not necessarily a basketball height or skill set, but I do have an unwavering confidence, even in the face of extreme adversity. So
did you grow up in Portland?
I grew up in the East Bay in Martinez, California, at a kind of a little town called Pleasant Hill is where I lived or went to high school at. But once I figured out basketball is not a career for me, that's when I picked up the guitar. It's like I need a different personality before college, or I'm just gonna keep getting dunked on.
That's it, man.
I like that music was your backup plan. Like music was like, okay, this is the thing that's going to work. This is like the stable backup plan.
Well, if you had parents that were, because I know, Sarah, you mentioned having parents that were in the industry too. So they probably were encouraging and expected you to kind of go into that part of the biz. Is that right?
It's interesting because I think my dad was in radio, and he was the VP of sales at iHeartRadio for his whole career, basically. And so it's interesting because my parents both played music as a hobby, and my mom was a music teacher, and she would, sing in professional choirs and all that kind of stuff. And yet still they were very much like, go to college, get a degree. Like I don't think it occurred to me that music was a job. Because I saw, the way that my dad was, he was selling advertising for a radio station. So he was around music, but he wasn't doing it as his job. And then my mom was doing it as her job, but it wasn't breadwinning necessarily. And so I kind of got these two interesting, messages around that. And it's just interesting because it was always very much encouraged in my house that we play an instrument and that we sing. And my parents came to all of our choir concerts and all of my solo ensemble, competitions and all that kind of stuff. And so when I did come around when I was 24 and I was like, I do think I want to do this as a career, they were incredibly supportive, and they were like, okay, you got your degree, you tried the workforce, and we know that you're a hard worker. So, we trust you that you're going to, put your all into this. And
so Scott, you mentioned growing up in the East Bay, and basketball was your first go-to, but did you have some support from the family when you decided that guitar was it? And did you move to Portland specifically to play music? Is that right?
I definitely had. So you're typing some emails?
Yeah, she's gonna. Well, right.
I was just going to type to you guys that I have to go get my computer charger.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Scott,
Yeah,
talk. I'll be right
I'll
back.
take Sarah off the camera. I figured right now because the stock,
finally some alone time. Wow.
it's just you and me, buddy. Now tell me how it really goes when you're writing songs.
Oh, I did. I did. My parents, Etta and Eric Gilmore, have been so supportive of everything that I've put my mind to, which has been super helpful. Even back when it was, the goal of being in the NBA. Like I said, they're like, you should do that. We believe in you, but also have a backup plan. I guess always been their guidance on that. But as far like I was at school at the U of O for journalism and advertising, which my dad is a journalist and my mom is an English tutor, and so words have always been kind of in the family. And the goal is going to go into advertising after that. Until it was pretty close to when I was graduating, when kind of made the decision that I wanted to move up to Portland and pursue music. And they switched my graduation gift from a computer to a Gibson Les Paul, and I've never really looked back. I still have it. It's, I think, like 2003 kind of classic. And they've been supportive all the way through, and even to this day, are very supportive, and that has been, I think, one of the big reasons why we're still in it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I certainly have had plenty of musicians on the show that didn't have the support of family, and they kind of had to go against the parental, approval, to go out. And like you guys, I mean, I moved to Portland at 24 with just stars in my eyes, and I was just completely. I moved from Montana. Of course, Montana is as everybody knows, it's the heart of the entertainment industry where you can just make it huge. But I think at that point, throwing caution to the wind, I came out to go to grad school, and I realized all I wanted to do was play music, and I was willing to do anything else to supplement that. And I met a handful of people when I moved to Portland that were actually doing music exclusively to make a living, and not necessarily like they didn't make it in a band, but they were playing in 5 different bands. They were working in the studio. They were doing sessions on the weekend, playing churches and whatever else they could do. But I thought, like you would see in LA or Nashville and sort of big entertainment hubs, that, they would just do whatever it took. You would kind of throw all cards in. Did you guys, like when you, so Scott, I mean, you mentioned moving up here, you were going to U of O. Were you playing around Eugene a lot, or were you actually just thinking, okay, I need to get to Portland because that's where music is at for me?
That was when my psychedelic rock band formed in Eugene, and so we were playing a good amount around
Makes
town
sense.
for the Pacific Northwest Westerners, the Luckies and Wow Halls and all the Oak Street speakeasies that we would play around in. But I was still kind of learning a lot at the time too, because I just picked up music in 4 or so years earlier, and so I had a very active. I was very active and committed and very confident, but not necessarily. I didn't necessarily have the skills to back it up at that time. And so, as we kept playing and kept learning, that's when I think a lot of the pieces came together, and we all moved up to Portland as a band, and just having that kind of group dynamic and those amount of people dedicated to creating something pulled us through a lot of tough times. I think. One of our close friends has a saying, octopus income, where you've got to have income coming in from all sorts of different streams, and I think that's something that you need to have in music. You need, like for me, it's like talent buying, playing solo gigs, then the band stuff, the merchandise, maybe a side hustle doing other things here and there. But I think a creative career takes a lot of different income streams to make it all work, and you have to be willing to take on all sorts of challenges that come your way and all opportunities. Often you just have to say yes to a lot of things, and through that you can put it together, and then also not lose the kind of joy that comes with being in a creative industry.
Amen. Man, honestly, the adage of, as you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right? But I mean, I think what I've seen when we watched that video of you guys doing House on the River, there's so much joy on stage. I mean, you guys obviously really love what you're doing, and it shows with the interpersonal communication you have on stage with the other guys in the band. That's a huge part, especially with that many sort of like moving parts in a band. If there's any sort of angst or like it just, I was going to say the ego over fronting the band, then it makes it a lot less fun, but well, so you were doing that psychedelic band when you moved to Portland, and you said you saw Sarah and asked about songwriting. Did you have to break it to the guys that, hey, I'm bailing on the band, I'm going to go in a different direction?
It never quite came to that in certain terms. As interesting as we had been together for 10 or so years playing music, and we had one of our guitarists was already on the East Coast, Ian Ridgway, captaining small ships. We had our other lead guitarist, Peter Marcotte, had just gotten a job through one of the gigs and moving down to San Diego. And so it never was the band breaking up. It kind of, everyone just got pulled in different directions. And we still all see each other a bunch, and we have maybe we've all been kind of percolating on a reunion show at some point. But it never quite was like this is our last show type of feeling. So
that helps for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys have been in the studio and you've got, you said Dave, right? Is your David? Is that correct?
Greg.
Greg.
Greg Holden.
Greg Holden.
His middle name might be David, isn't it?
If not, I just made it
making
up for him. Yeah. But when you got him out there, do you guys? Does he tour with the band as well, or does he just stay in the studio with you guys?
He's in the studio. Yeah. I know that Greg has toured all over as a solo act. And I think part of him wants to get back to it. And the other part of him, well, he just had a baby. So he's kind of tied to here. And I know he's getting back out. He's doing a residency at the White Eagle here in Portland for the next few months to promote his new album. But he doesn't come out with us. In fact, we really have to beg him to get on stage with us at all. But he has a couple times, a couple of our shows. We're like, please come sing backups with us. And he'll do it. So if we let him know enough ahead of time and that he can get childcare and all that,
buy him a whiskey
then
shot.
he'll join us on stage. But
nice, especially after
exactly.
a brand new kid. Yeah, he might really appreciate that whiskey shot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So what's the next then? So I know that we've got the new. You said that there's a new single coming out and Giving Up Tonight next month, right? And you said that you're on the road a lot. So are you guys going back out again, or do you have a little bit of time off where you can focus on the release of the single?
We're going back out at the end of March. Pretty much right after the single comes out. So we're doing a 2-month tour around the US and kind of coming back at the end of May. And we'll do part of that tour will be as a trio with a bass player named Jared May, who was with us at NAMM and has become kind of like the third official member of Fox and Bones at this point. So he'll be joining us on the road for the April shows. And then it's just Scott and I in May.
It's booked by Black Oak Artists too. We have a booking agent that is booking this tour, and it's been so great to work with Regine and her team. And I think it's gonna be a really fun tour. The dates are starting to fill up to a point where I think we're gonna be on 5 or 6 days a week in a lot of these spots, and so which I'm so excited and slightly nervous about. Yeah,
well, I mean, right now the travel too. Do you guys go by van? Is that how you're doing most of your travel?
We're gonna be traveling in a new Toyota Grand Highlander hybrid. So it's coming. We're getting it in here later this month, and it'll be a new way of travel. So we'll see how it goes.
The hybrid's a smarter way to go. I mean, right now with gas prices, that's the tough thing, right? About the expense of touring has gotten so much more difficult for a lot of bands, and some of the sort of the bigger package tours that I've seen, and Scott, if you're doing a lot of talent buying, you've probably seen this, that some of the big package tours they're not sustainable. So I saw that one big one in the 80s genres pulled out today. They just said we can't do this right now because of the expenses. But you guys have figured out ways to whittle it down and survive.
Yeah, I think the big thing for Scott and I is that because up until the last year, we were DIY and we were booking our own tours in the United States. And so we would book tours around where we knew people. And that was like our anchor point. So instead of like just, hey, we're just going to go to this random city. It's like, no, we'll go to the places where we have family and friends that we know we can stay with. And I think that has created a lot. And then, early on, we weren't paying rent at home either. And so we were like, okay, if we stay on the road and if we have free places to stay, then the gas and the food like that does become reasonable. And now, the expenses changed having a third person with us. We can't just sleep on people's couches. Like Jared is like a really professional musician who tours with much bigger bands than us, and he's used to a standard of living. And so we do get the hotels and stuff. He's used to having a bed.
Oh, what a diva.
He's used to not being squished in the back of a car too. So we've wanted to like give him a little bit more of a normal tour experience, and it has been nice to stay in hotels, but we're just kind of piecing it together at this point. I think having a third person on the road inherently is just costlier, but it's like this investment in like, what do we want to be? Like, I don't want to be touring as a folk duo anymore. I want to start billing us as more of a full band, and to do that we've got to bring people on the road, and we kind of have to test it out, and we have to believe in it before it like really brings money in. And I do think that we are starting to see gigs come in where it's like, okay, we can make this work now. And, it might be expensive, but it's just interesting. We've never really over focused on that as part of it. And we've always come out on top financially, at least in the States. Europe might be a different story, but, and we also are pretty low production still. So it's like, we're in this stage where we can still kind of make it work, because we're not bringing a sound guy and lights and all of that stuff. So I know that at that next level, there's a lot more expenses that you jump into.
I just think about like those European tours. The good thing about Europe, right, especially Western Europe, the cities are so close together. So at least the travel, you're not traveling as much, right? So if you can jump, 2 hours, you're in the next city, and you can play something that like in the US, especially if you're on the West, in the West, you're driving all day just to be able to get to a gig. That's tough. Mm-hmm. But what's the ideal touring situation for you guys? Like, if you had a full band, if you were going to pair up with another artist, maybe somebody that's established at a national level that has all the tour support, who would be a good pair for you guys?
No, we had a blast. We were on the road with Fantastic Cat recently, which is one of our new favorite bands, and that was so much fun just because they put on such good shows and are such sweet dudes. There's I some of my favorite, I'll just say a few of my favorite artists just if doing some manifesting here. I love Rayland Baxter. He was a headliner at Portland Folk Festival. I'd love to play some shows with him. The Lone Bellow is another one of our favorite artists that I love to play with. I think being on the road with bands is so much fun because you get to see how everyone does it. See how these different successful musicians can curate and create their career and take all the best things that they've done and add it to the way that you do things. And so, Sarah, do you have some specific goals since band? Precious?
Yeah, if you're gonna get, like, give me the band, the most ideal band for you, Sarah. If you're gonna pair up with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I would have said the Lone Bellow for sure as well. I think they're so big now, but Lake Street Dive has been a long inspiration of ours. And yeah, I'm sure I have more, but
it's all right
at the moment.
It's funny.
Nathaniel Rateliff would be amazing. Nice. Also.
Yeah. You talked about, sort of those locations, the places where you've got family and friends and you've been able to crash. But do you have any spots in particular that just stand out? Your favorite places in the country to travel?
I think that we really enjoy being in the Midwest just because for whatever reason, the audiences there have really taken to us. I think that we know that we have good drawing crowds in the Midwest. And so we feel really, taken care of and loved there, which is great. I think that Tucson, Arizona is another place. We've played the Tucson Folk Festival a number of years in a row now. And we won their songwriting contest back in 2023. Right. And so we got a lot of attention in Tucson from that. And it's led to a long and beautiful partnership between us and the Tucson Folk Festival. We are going back there this year. We really like Boise, Idaho. We have a lot of friends there, and we're playing Tree Fort Festival for the first time this year. And so, we've got these little hot spots that we really, really like to be. Those are some of my favorites. And Scott, do you have an addition to that?
Yeah, Appleton, Wisconsin is always a good spot. Yeah, I feel it's when we first started out, we'd take every single gig, whether it was $0 or $50 or a coffee shop or being paid for in coffee. And
Yeah.
that kind of got us, as for each time we'd come back to the city, we'd learn where the new spot to play is, or we'd like the word on the street. And so after all this time, it's been feeling really nice to go to a place, a small town somewhere, yeah, anywhere in the US, and maybe have two people who saw it, like, oh, we saw you 6 years ago at this spot in this place in the US. And so sometimes it can be tough to feel like there's movement in a music career. You feel kind of
Right.
like you're just punching against a wall. But when you get out and you see people that you've interacted with, or that you've made friends with, or that have seen a show you did 9 years ago, it's like, oh, there's progress. We're making progress. It doesn't always feel like it, but this is the hard work pays off, and the
Yeah.
dedication to it does pay off in really small but very meaningful ways.
I just saw, like, in the Instagram chat, it's not showing up in the main feed, but in the Instagram chat, Jeremy Burchett said, "Hey, I know these guys. Jeremy,
Yeah.
amazing drummer. I'm guessing you guys may have worked together in the past. Is that right?"
Oh yeah, he did all the drums for our second
Right
and
on.
third record.
Yeah. Just I mean, as a drummer, that's one of the things I noticed was just the consistency and the sonic quality of the drums are they're phenomenal, So great job, Jeremy. Not surprised one bit, but
And shout out to Matt Greco, who put the band for our second and third records together for Betterland and American Alchemy. Matt Greco is our producer at Rye Room, and he just got just a crazy A team squad and put them together. Then they've really developed our sound to, well, what it is today. Is like, because we came from just me and Sarah just doing acoustic stuff, and so that team came together and created like our sound as it is now, which is such a valuable thing, because we didn't know what we're doing. We were just kind of throwing acoustic songs and seeing what sticks.
it's super pro. Like I said, I mean, it definitely does not sound at all sort of basement recording. It sounds very quality, which is great. That's the hope. And but for the next record, you've got this new single coming out March 13th, Ain't Giving Up Tonight. People can probably get access to shows that are coming up as well by your website. Is that right? They go to foxandbones.com.
The United States tour is coming together. We've started releasing dates. We've got about a third of the dates released so far, but we got another 30 or so on the way.
Right on. Well, you guys, I really appreciate you weathering the storm, to be able to get here and make sure that I get to share a little Fox and Bones. If you guys got here late, make sure you go back to the beginning. There's some really cool live video that we had from Fox and Bones playing a year ago. They've got plenty of touring. So if you're coming from any place else around the country, make sure you go to check out foxandbones.com for the tour dates, and put them up on a couch and make sure if you feed them well, because they've worked hard for it. And if you guys are interested and you want to come back again, 5:00 tomorrow night, 5:00 Pacific, 8:00 Eastern, you can go to Access Kevin, youtube.com/@AccessKevin. Find out about Frank Murray tomorrow at 5:00 on Thursday, February 6th, and Friday, February 7th, Nikki Dial. Got the amazing Kip Winger coming on about a week and a half from now as well. So we'll have lots of good hairband Winger stories, and then maybe we'll see Sarah Vitort in Tragic Kingdom as well, right? We get to see you do some No Doubt tributes somewhere on Portland.
Yeah. In fact, Friday we're doing an MTV Unplugged type set, so it'll be our first kind of stripped down version of Tragic Kingdom at Headliners Club, and then we're doing the full shebang on March 14th, I believe, at Headliners.
Right on. Well, okay, so folks, if you're here and you've already subscribed to the channel, I'm going to go down Friday after the Nikki Dial episode. I'll go to Headliners. I'll get a little footage of Tragic Kingdom, and I'll share it here on the channel so you guys get to see the other side of Fox and Bones. And go check these guys out. Make sure you check out the last couple of records, and then grab the new single when it comes out on March 13th. Scott Gilmore, Sarah Vitort, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
Kevin.
for
This
having
was
us.
awesome.
Awesome, guys. Thanks.